Scooter heads, we're back once again at the Consumer Electronics Show in outrageous Las Vegas. One of the surprises at CES 2022 for me was that I got to talk to Greg, the Chief Technical Officer of Fluid Freeride. I own a couple of their products, an Apollo Explorer and a Horizon. And I do like both of those scooters. So if you're listening to this podcast and you like it, you really should go back to episode 55 and 56. Greg is from New York, and I have experience teaching English and living in foreign countries. So I'm used to speaking rather slow and clear. And you can hear the difference in his speaking style and mine. He's kind of quick. I was a little disappointed that we didn't have the talk about coffee, talk about dogs, New York accent. But when we were not recording, I told him this. I was like, hey, where's the accent? And he let it out, so he can definitely do it. But he does have a good way with words, way of describing things. So you really ought to go back and listen to episodes 55 and 56, where we discuss things like solid tires as opposed to pneumatic. We went into braking. He talked about drum brakes, different suspension systems, and shock absorbers. We talked about different models. We talked about Mantis, Inokim, advantages of knobby tires, and lighting, among other things. So if you get a chance, go back and listen to episodes 55 and 56. But I think you're going to enjoy this episode as well. Honestly, I'm not just saying this. This was a fantastic interview. Wait until you hear Greg talk about his Frankenscoot. He's blending a couple different scooter brands together. I'll give you a hint. The front end is a Wolf Warrior, of course, because that is the most stable ride that you can get. Let me tell you something. I tried a huge variety of scooters at CES. Bottom line, there's nothing like that Wolf Warrior line. There just isn't. When you ride a scooter that has a motorcycle style front end, what we call upside down forks, and then you get on a single stem scooter, the difference is massive. Now, I know there are a lot of people that are huge fans of the Dualtron. It's almost a cult. You'll hear in a future podcast, Oman Dan talking about almost the cult of Dualtron, and Yogi Steve of the Electric Scooter Academy is a Dualtron enthusiast. And I do love a lot of things about their line, but the front end just does not have that stability. And I'm, doing kind of crazy stuff on my scooter. I'm not just commuting. So for me, it's a big deal. If you look at the Dagwood Streets YouTube channel, you'll see me going around the track. And even though the Wolf King GT is massive, it's so much bigger and heavier than a lot of scooters, you can see that I'm having an easier time navigating those sharp, well, one of the corners was 180 degrees. Actually, two of the corners were 180 degrees. And on the Dualtron and a lot of the other scooters, when you're riding them side by side, you can really tell the difference. I'll tell you the one I didn't like right off the bat, and that was the version 2 of the Apollo Phantom. I had ridden version 1, and I was really a cheerleader, hoping that it was going to be a good model because the Apollo guys took a lot of consumer feedback and gave that to the engineers in China. So after version 1, I thought, it's the first model, it's an experiment, so maybe version 2 they'll get stuff straightened out. And they did get a lot straightened out, but it still suffers for low speed maneuvering. And that's what I like to do. So the Apollo Phantom for me is out of the question. But really, most of those scooters, to me, they feel kind of rickety. Is that the word? They feel rickety compared to any of the Wolf Warrior lines. I don't care which one. I've ridden them all, and that motorcycle style front end, it's just the way to go. Greg is going to talk about this Frankenscoot that he's making, and I was hanging on every word. It's a little later in the podcast. First, you're going to hear about the new store that they're opening in San Francisco. We're going to talk about motorcycles a little bit, but wait until you hear this scooter that he is making. Could this be the beginning of a new line? Blending, I think it's the Nami with a Wolf Warrior front end. Wow. Maybe he'll be putting out some custom scoots. I'm not opposed to that. You could do some crazy paint jobs and end up with something cool. Fat Scooters, I interviewed Fat Scooters a few months back. They're doing crazy customs. They're big fat tires. Greg is talking about putting a little skinny tire on the front, and wow, I won't tell you anymore. You can hear it in his words. Also, he's going to mention, speaking of tires, tire changes and some of his secrets, how to get the bead sealed and get your tire changed. Anyway, let's get on with the podcast. From the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, this is the Chief Technical Officer for Fluid Freeride, Greg. So we were talking about the store that you are opening up in the Bay Area. Where specifically?
Yeah, so we're actually opening in San Francisco, and it is
in San Francisco proper.
San Francisco proper.
Rent has got to be just insane.
We got lucky finding a nice spot, but of course, there's no getting away from that. It is a very high cost area. But yeah, we're in San Francisco proper. We're in the Soma district, and we're still working on it. Finding staff, getting all the equipment, this and that, but we're fairly close, and I'm really excited to open up that shop as well, kind of get it aligned with our, kind of standard operating procedure we have in Brooklyn and Miami, and she'll be off running. And the main goal with that was, to be really close to kind of another area, which is the kind of the pulse of scooterdom, so to say, as my friend Mr. Beasley would say. But
not to be confused with the Scooter Dome, which is in Las Vegas.
Not to be confused with the Scooter Dome. But as well as to help our West Coast customers out. While obviously in the Bay Area, our clients in Southern California wouldn't be able to immediately access it physically, we can really speed up maybe our ship and repair time and our parts delivery time, and just have yet another venue where we have more part storage and accessibility.
Closer to China, too, when the ships pull in, right?
Oh, absolutely. For like testing a new product or such. That's another hub that's much closer to the port, so we can get it sent directly to the port of Oakland, which is really nice. And overall, too, it's, for its local benefits, another city with great bike infrastructure, kind of a really proud heritage of using anything but a car to get around. And I think the local residents will really appreciate, our offerings, because at our local shops, we actually sell refurbished units, and they are discounted versus our online prices, but they're local only, right? We won't ship them. You have to come to the store and experience it and get it. And, I'm sure a lot of residents will benefit from that and kind of really appreciate being able to get them service locally.
I got to say, though, I'm a little bit jealous because the Bay Area already has so many great riding groups and clubs. I know Pevra, I interviewed Jesse from Pevra recently, that they did a ride from the Bay Area all the way down to L.A., and I just look at other places in the United States that feel like they're being ignored. So I really want you to be successful. I know you will be because there's such a need, but my hope is that Brooklyn will make a ton of money,
You'll get rich. Everybody, scooter heads in the area will be happy. The same thing will happen in San Francisco, and you can therefore branch out. And I'm hoping Las Vegas is a place that you guys will look at, but I don't know that we have as many people commuting in Las Vegas on scooters because, especially during the summer. I don't know. Maybe there are. I see people on motorcycles, so maybe there are.
Yeah, and that's the challenge, right? We obviously the best way to do it and the most successful way to do it is covering those major markets. But eventually, every area that we do sell in needs some way to get either just some support, and whether, like I said before, whether that be knowledge or just assistance with certain features and actual service and maintenance. And that is my personal challenge and my personal kind of, as you were mentioning earlier, having the motivation of it being overall a positive thing for people's lives, for their well-being, for the environment. It kind of keeps me up at night. It's just like, how do I make this as easy as possible? And how it gives me the drive to make this as successful as possible and open these stores, which are in themselves, that's an endeavor. Opening any physical business anywhere, but kind of tying it into our overall brand. And with a rather complicated subject matter in a very huge country, you got some challenges ahead to make that work.
That's tough, but I think once you do get it open, everything is just going to be headed your way. It's just going to be huge. And you mentioned personal challenges. I don't know if you're not ready to get off topic yet, right? I do want to hear about your personal projects. If you have any scooters laying around that you're trying to maybe add more battery to it or make it faster or handle better. Do you have anything like that going on?
Yeah, well, it's funny, guys. Repairing some of these scooters, doing maintenance, some of them are, unfortunately, we pronounce them dead, right? And I have access to tons of parts, and I get a little gleeful.
You get ideas when you see things.
I get
right?
ideas. I get really gleeful because the gears in my head start turning.
What do they say? One man's trash is another man's treasure.
100%. I remember, since I was a kid, I would be dumpster diving for tools and equipment for my little shop that I had. So it didn't change once I got older, but now it's just a more interesting medium. And I actually have a scooter I'm working on. So it's one of our Namis. And I have always loved MotoGP and Formula One and whatnot. And that was the first scooter that I rode that really inspired me.
Who was your guy, Valentino Rossi? Or
you know what?
Did you follow any certain?
I will admit it's kind of a superficial love.
Oh,
right?
Okay. You like watching it.
I love the bikes and the tech more than I actually love watching it.
Okay.
So I love the MotoGP bikes, let me say, or the Formula One cars. I will watch the race sometimes, but I never really got into it. I've never been a sports guy myself. Even watching cycling, funny enough, even racing bikes, just never my thing. With my Nami, I saw kind of a beautifully machined, adaptable sort of base to kind of start imposing my ideas on. And I was like, oh, look at this pile of spare parts. I wonder what fits on this thing and what I can do with it. So one of the first things I did with the help of our neighbors in Brooklyn across the street, we actually have an elevator company that has a guy there who does used to do motorcycle restoration. And he has a lathe and a drill press and all sorts of these wonderful tools I do not have. And he gave me some time on the lathe, so I actually adapted the suspension from the Wolf Warrior, which is one of my favorite suspension setups, or front suspension setups, and I put it on my Nami.
Wow.
And that
Frankenscoot.
A Frankenscooter. Now, unfortunately, it does not fold anymore. So its practicality is going by the wayside. But in the
I never fold either of my Wolves.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't live in an apartment building.
Yeah, me too. If I can help it, I live on the first floor in Brooklyn of a building, and I have a couple steps to go up, but I just kind of throw it up into a wheelie, hook the front wheel, and then use it to lift the rear wheel up.
Exactly.
I get right in. If I don't have to fold it, I never do. But what I immediately noticed with the Nami was it produced, probably not great for everyday riding, but for my purposes, an extremely rigid chassis that I could now, instead of before, I did some foot positioning, some body positioning. Now I can literally hang off the handlebars, throw my butt down into turns, similar to like sidecar racing. And, I just had this base where I could really explore the limits of what the scooter can do. From there, I really want to start working on the suspension. So I've been really trying to see if I can get some Olean suspension from the bicycle world to fit on my Nami. It was going to be more machining and more probably work to get that done. And then also rebuilding the front shocks from the Wolf.
It's just a matter of brackets, though, right? Really?
No, with that, it's going to be some work on the lathe to do different kind of... Well, the Olean shock, pretty much the only one they have is threaded on one end to be attached to the subframe, and then the other end has an eyelet that it allows it to move. It's called a trunnion mount. Probably with that, if I can get one that's used, I would probably actually bore it out and create a top pivot and see if I can actually fit it within the NAMI, because that'll give me just a world of adjustment and rebuildability and a little blank too.
But what speed do you think you'll actually really need that at once you hit up 50, 60?
Yeah, so that was another idea with the chassis as well, is to build a scooter that can hold its top speed sustained, right? So I want to be able to go 60 miles an hour as comfortably as I've done on any of my motorcycles, or as anybody could. And I'm pretty much there. I take that thing up to its top speed all the time. I've hit some pretty major kind of road anomalies and potholes and whatnot. And, besides a slight shake with any vehicle, it's pretty stable. So it's giving me kind of more ambition to continue my project.
What's the fastest you've got the NAMI up to?
Slightly downhill, I've got it up to 65 miles an hour.
Okay.
Yeah. But on flat level service, it's pretty much it's rated 61 or 62.
Mm-hmm. And it feels stable?
Yeah. Even the stock one feels really nice, and actually a little bit nicer than my scooter, because it doesn't have such rigid suspension. But my scooter, my custom one, feels really, really good too, even up at that speed.
Do you have any thoughts of getting it up to the speeds of like a Ryan?
Yeah, so actually that kind of, I'm slightly competitive, and I'm also pretty creative. So I've been envisioning ways to go basically toe-to-toe with that. I believe it's 80 miles an hour limited, according to them, and apparently a top speed of 100 miles an hour, right, with no limits in place.
It'd be like a Viper going against the Tesla, right?
Well, that's what I'm aiming for. I have 100 miles an hour in sight.
Wow.
Now, achieving that with scooter motors and accessible tech is going to be challenging, because one of the things I want to do with this is I don't want it to be some kind of, unlike the MotoGP and Formula One cars, some garage queen that's really specialized and nobody can get their hands on this. I want to see what I can get off the shelf with a little elbow grease to make this thing go toe-to-toe with a scooter that is very specialized and has a very specific use. And like I said, it's a personal project. It's just for me. It's not something we're going to produce. But, it kind of drives my creative mindset with our other models, right, and what we're looking for, and kind of just getting out there and riding with other people. And
what are some of the things you would look at to get a higher speed? I mean, the obvious one I would think would be battery.
You're going to need a higher system voltage battery. For example, right now the Mami's 72 volts, which is actually extremely high for the scooters and even for bikes. But probably something like that, I would be in the 96 volt range, just to lower that amperage that's going to the motor and kind of make it a little easier on the electronics. I am kind of capped with the controllers that I would be using, if they can accept that 96 volt input. I'm actually eyeing, and funny enough, they have a booth here at CES, the ASI controllers, because they are kind of ultimately programmable, and they can help you with their engineering support to achieve your goals with whatever electric vehicle you're doing. And they're expensive, but they're very, very high quality units that can handle quite a bit of current, at least for the one I'm looking at. What I'm ultimately thinking of going, though, is probably foregoing the hub motor design on mine. I cut up the chassis a little bit and modify it, and probably do a central kind of just very large DC motor with a chain drive to the rear.
Or belt. How about belt?
Or belt.
Like Harley Davidson has?
If I can get the right angle, and, because belts do not tolerate any deviance in alignment. But if I can get the right angle.
They do last, though.
They do last. And they'll transfer the power of the scooter. I'm talking my hands. They do transfer the power of the scooter motors, or even, the proposed power of the motor I want to put.
See, that's where the New Yorker came out in you a little bit, huh? With the hands, talking with the hands.
Jutting the microphone up into space.
That's a visual. I'll explain it.
So I'm going to bust into the conversation right here. We had a side conversation off microphone. I used to teach English. I like foreign languages. I like traveling. So naturally, I love accents, and New York accent is one of the ones among the many accents that I really, really like. I was kind of hoping or expecting that he was going to come out with the New York kind of accent, but he can turn it on and off. Here, he was gesticulating. He was talking with his hands. And this is a podcast. You can't see that. So that is why we were laughing. He was sort of reverting back to New York a little.
Welcome to Coffee Talk. I'm your host, Paul Baldwin. On this show, we talk about things like coffee, New York, daughters, dogs, no big whoop.
And now back to our broadcast.
Probably start off with a chain drive. If I could do a belt, that'd be a very elegant, quiet
And
solution.
how about tires? Like oversized tires, maybe? Or-
Yeah, so unfortunately, actually, tires are a funny note. Yet another thing that people give me a lot of grief on. So I'm actually trying out a very skinny and by nature low-profile front tire and keeping my rear tire that normal, I think was like 3 or 4 inch width. And people have definitely been looking at it because it's actually the tire from a Segway 9-watt Max G30.
I love those tires.
Yeah.
I talk about those all the time because they come pre-installed with the goop inside.
Yeah, and they have that silicone bead on
One
the
of my
inside.
pet peeves is why aren't those tires sold aftermarket so you can swap them out on
Actually,
other scooters?
a funny note, the new GT series of the Wolves have that silicone barrier on the inside.
Really?
Yeah, that is when they mentioned flat-proof tires or such, if you've seen any of the media for the Wolf GT series, is because they've added that silicone kind of donut on the inside to help with puncture protection.
So I wonder if I could put those on my regular Wolf.
Yeah, you could. They're the same tire size, and I don't see any reason why you wouldn't be able to. The only thing I think would be hard for a lot of people is the installation, right? Because you don't want to abuse that membrane or get it to separate from the tire.
Right.
And you can, especially getting kind of too crazy with the tire levers, you can start poking at it and, getting your tools
You
stuck
know what
to
I
it.
heard one of the keys is heating it up.
Yeah.
Like putting it in hot water, because I talked to Scott Carbone from eCarve Scooters in Tampa, Florida, and he has a whole fleet of 9-bot Maxes, and he has to change those all the time. I'm lazy. I never put out the video on YouTube, but I actually recorded him explaining how to do that. There is a key, and he said exactly what you said. It is tricky.
So we actually have, going back to, I guess, our service center, that is one of the, there's always an eye roll job in any workshop, right, or any dealership or such. Changing the tires on a Wolf is, tedious, even in a workshop setting. But we have a great way to do it, and I've demonstrated it, I think, to a couple people, but it's mainly utilizing that center channel that's molded into the rim. If you can get whatever the opposing part of where you're pulling on to dip into that, then you've now created, more room for you to be able to pull it up and over the rim lip. So generally, the old tires almost always come off very easily because they have material worn away, they're nice and supple, but the new ones are not, right? So while we're doing the disassembly process, we actually have usually the heat gun applied to the tires, and we kind of have it within the kind of rim of the tire, heating up the internal part of it. So by the time the technicians get to it, they throw on a pair of gloves, because it does get pretty toasty, and we're able to, get over the first lip. It is a bit of a hard time getting it started, on the second rim bead, tire bead, I'm sorry. But once you have it grabbed and you kind of feed it into that rim channel, being warm, they'll just somewhat easily go on. But that little one, the 9-bot Max G30 tire, it actually is a tubeless tire, or at least the one I bought for it. That one was a little more challenging because being a narrow tire and being a low-profile tire, the tire beads are very close. Getting it on, it still is kind of hooked on to the ramp of the bead on the one side. They just got it over. So that one, heat, a little soap and water, and just kind of taking my time or stepping away from it if it becomes frustrating.
Yeah, you gotta work it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of an art.
Yeah.
Scott went on and on because he does those all the time.
Yeah, I could describe it, but I probably one day I have to make a video and I'll describe it to people because I actually do have a pretty quick technique for getting them on and off, and I pop them on and off all day long, and I have the calluses to show for it.
Get on board. Train's about to leave the station. The Electric Scooter Podcast. Woo! Everybody now. Get with me. It's coming at you. A new episode. The Electric Scooter Podcast. It's electric. It's electric. Yeah, you know you want it. Listen. Put it in your ear.
Now, I don't know if it's profitable for you or whatever, but if it works in the scheme of your company, But I know Paul has heard this a lot too. Paul Somerville of the Electric Scooter Guide is there's many tutorials
Yes.
on things that people can do at home. I think maybe the profit for you would be that it would be less work that you have to do of things getting sent back to you. If you could say, hey, watch this video and try this first maybe before you send it. I know you're busy setting up 2 stores and you're way too busy to do that now. But is that something that you've thought about for the future? Just little 5 or 10 minute videos on how to maintain your scooter?
Yeah, so once I kind of finish my my very short-term goals of getting these shops running proficiently, that is essentially what I'll be focusing on is access to information, both on the consumer side as well as for our technician staff. I really want to create a very standardized way to train all of our employees and have a kind of cohesive language that they all speak and they all understand and can reference. So a byproduct of that would be probably, I'll spend my time making quite a few videos for some common gripe points for our customers. The tire one being, for the different models and different configurations, a very big gripe point for a lot of consumers. As we were mentioning before in a private conversation, that's just whenever you see a flat tire on a scooter, you really do that face palm, and you're like, wow, this is going to be an issue.
I've watched Julian's video of how to collapse and adjust the Wolf Warrior. I've watched that so many times, I've probably worn it out. But even that, I think he just pointed a camera at himself. It was like 5 years ago or something, maybe 4 years ago or whatever. Just little vignettes, little snippets of how to do this, how to do that. Just so valuable, because I know as a consumer and a non-handy guy and a scooter head myself, I'm scouring the internet for those things. We talked about on the QSS4, that little wire inside of there, save somebody $45 or whatever, just one little wire that's like a paper clip.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then, it's funny actually, so it is something we are already currently focusing on, because you mentioned before, if it would make a profit or not, but it's actually irrelevant because it is all part of our kind of customer service experience, is that if you need help with your scooter, man, we got you. So we already have a bit of a support library, which I'm sure is where you found that video for the Wolf Warrior folding mechanism. But now that we've established it, we have some content in there. It's just making videos, turning them out, and growing it. And it's irrelevant whether or not it's a profitable use of time, because it feeds into our overall business and kind of just what people expect from us and what they hear about us. So.
Even something like how to change or patch a tire, if they're searching for that and it comes across Fluid Freeride, then the next time they think I need to buy a tire, or they have it, at least the company name and logo uppermost in their mind when they go to buy another scooter, or it gets them into your world.
Yeah, and then, it's funny, on a side note to that, but it's rather interesting, unlike a car or even a motorcycle, people can afford multiple scooters. So that is usually the differentiating thing, where it's like, okay, I bought the Horizon from them, but now, I want something a little bit faster, a little more capable. Who am I going to choose, right? There's multiple vendors, and, now that I've gotten in the scooter world, I've seen more options. Oh, but these guys, offered that great support when I had the flat tire on the Mantis and made that process pretty easy.
I know for me that is the case. That is the way I make purchases. Even isn't the Fluid Horizon similar, or share parts with the 08X?
I believe that is, it's a sister model. They pretty much share most of their parts, yes.
I think when I was looking for a kickstand, I came across a 08X. Someone in a forum said it's the same one. But I tried to order one, and it was on order for like a month and a half, and then finally I got an email. It wasn't from you, it was from somebody up in the Pacific Northwest, and they eventually just sent me an email, said, you're not going to get a kickstand, sorry.
Jeez. It's funny, actually, we do a lot of, we mainly only work on our own scooters at our repair shops, and that's what we specialize in, but in Brooklyn, we see every single brand of scooter and configuration of scooter come in.
So you're up and running in Brooklyn?
Oh yeah, we've been running for the past year.
Okay.
Last year we cleared about 600 service cases. So we were a very busy repair shop. Which anybody listening in New York, I do apologize about the wait sometimes, but we are booked as long as we.
At least
say we
you're
are.
there. At least there is, yeah.
Oh no,
we
we have a lot of riders come through, and just more and more people, as time goes on. and that's been a real win for us. I'm really happy with how the shop's doing and how the team is forming out as well, which is the most important thing because happy team makes happy customers.
Right.
A happy team makes happy customers. Don't you wish all bosses talked like that? That's a guy you want to work for. Greg, Chief Technical Officer for Fluid Freeride. Join us next week, next episode, where we're going to talk a little bit more about customer service and batteries, as you wish. Till next time, keep the shiny side up and the dirty side down.